Good afternoon. The city of Toronto remains under a heat warning as the heat wave continues to scorch southern Ontario.
The Toronto District School Board is warning students and parents about uncomfortable conditions at some schools due to the extreme heat. CTV's Rahim Ladhani has been following the weather story on this Monday. He joins us now. Rahim, how is the afternoon air?
Well, you know, Michelle, right now there is a bit of a breeze and we're in the shade, so it's not terribly uncomfortable. But certainly if you're going to be outside for a long period of time, you definitely want to make sure that you are staying hydrated. Keeping students safe in these extreme conditions is a top priority. And the Toronto District School Board says that the key to surviving and making it through the next couple of days is going to be exercising common sense. They say that all staff and teachers have been told to be vigilant about keeping an eye out for anyone that may be experiencing or showcasing any symptoms of heat distress. They're making sure students have their water bottles filled, the fans are running. Not every school does have air conditioning. There are about 600 TDSB schools. Some have full air conditioning, some have partial air conditioning. But one thing that all schools have are a cooling center, and that's certainly going to be crucial in this heat. So I want you to take a listen from the TDSB spokesperson, what they say in terms of the cooling center. Also the principal, they had some advice in terms of how they're taking care of recess today. And then take a listen to what some people, the general public, and how they're trying to cope with the heat right now. Take a listen.
The cooling center idea is a really important one. Every single TDSB school has a cooling center, and that can take its shape by air-conditioned library or going to the gym, wherever kids can find some relief.
We gave an option for the students in my cooling center. For the ones who wanted to go outside, they could go outside, or they can go out for a bit, they can come in. We're making sure before the recess we just had is we made sure they filled up their water bottles, we're wearing hat, we had sunscreen.
I have this water bottle. It's temperature controlled, so it's going to be cool. I have ice in here and some strawberries to keep me hydrated.
Yesterday was insane. I couldn't believe it. I got out walking about 7:30 yesterday, and I even walked along the lakeshore, and it was like really insanely hot.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of walking along the lakeshore, if you were there, you obviously took a look at Sunnyside Park, and you may have seen a lot of swimmers not in the pool. Obviously, going to a pool is an easy way to cool off from the heat, but for several hours yesterday, that pool was closed because lifeguards refused to work, saying that it was too hot for them to work. And so this was a very challenging time for many families and kids who had tried to beat the heat by going to Sunnyside Pool. After a few hours, it did open, but it's raised a lot of questions in terms of were the proper precautions put in place for the lifeguards to make sure that they are taken care of, and then also was there foresight on the city's part to make sure that these precautions were in place ahead of the heat wave so that all families could enjoy the pools. A lot of questions. There are about 5 out of the 85 pools which were actually shut down yesterday at 5:30 p.m. by the Ministry of Health for safety conditions. And people are wondering why 5 pools? Why not all 85? How was this decision made? We are expected to hear from Mayor Olivia Chow later this afternoon, and she'll certainly have to answer for why those decisions were made. For now, I'll send it back to you both in studio.
All right. Thank you, Rahim. Meanwhile, Premier Doug Ford weighed in on the situation at city pools this morning with Jerry Agar on NewsTalk 1010.
Is this a situation where somebody from the ministry just got it in their heads that it was too hot and went around and closed some pools, or what exactly happened here? Do you know?
No, the ministry doesn't close pools per se, but I'll have to talk to the mayor. We should have the pools open. That's the reason. When there's hot days, the pools should be open. And just curious, what ministry is in charge of swimming pools?
And let's talk about the forecast. Here's a live look at the city this afternoon. A temperature record could be set today as the humidex values are into the low and mid 40s. So a friendly reminder in weather like this to wear light, loose-fitting clothes, drink lots of water, and wear lots of sunblock. And you can't reinforce that message enough. Hey, Lindsay.
Yeah, Nathan, good point about the sunblock. You know, we're at a 10 today on the UV index, so it's not just the heat and humidity, it's also the sun's angle and strength at this time of year. Check this out. It is already 32 degrees in Toronto with a humidex value of 42. You'll find some relief by the lake today, but not a lot. It still feels like 32 this hour at the Toronto Islands and 30 in Grimsby, feeling close to 40 already in St. Catharines. Here's our forecast for today. 36 degrees, humidex 46. So even hotter than it was yesterday, if you can believe it. We're sort of peaking midway through this heat wave today. The record to watch, 32.8 degrees. I think we're going to beat that pretty easily for today. Widespread heat warning remains in place. We do have some gusty winds right now that are coming out of the southwest, gusting close to about 40 kilometers per hour. And all is clear on the satellite and radar. Lots of sun today. Do what you have to do to protect yourself in this heat and humidity. We'll take you through the forecast, let you know how long the heat wave is going to last. Coming up for now, though, Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Meanwhile, several communities in northern Ontario have declared states of emergency as they clean up following a severe storm over the weekend.
I was terrified, but there was this part of me that kept telling myself, it's okay. It's okay. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay.
Saturday's weather, which includes a possible tornado, flooded roads, brought down trees, and left some people trapped. The community of Calvin has issued a shelter-in-place order. Calvin and the town of Bonfield have declared states of emergency. The OPP are telling people to avoid non-essential travel as the cleanup continues and crews assess the damage.
Hamilton police say they've located the remains of Shalini Singh, a 40-year-old woman reported missing last December.
Her common-law partner has now been arrested and charged with second-degree murder in her death. CTV's John Musselman has been following this investigation. He joins us live with the update. John.
Well, Michelle, a devastating day for Shalini Singh's family as it was confirmed that the human remains found in the landfill site were her. Her common-law partner, 42-year-old Jeffrey Smith, has now been charged with second-degree murder and indignity to a body. Now, police held a news conference here this morning in Hamilton to update us on this case. Shalini went missing in December. She was last seen on security video entering her building in Hamilton, but she was never seen leaving. And that's when her family got concerned. Police got involved. And their theory was that she was killed in the apartment and then disposed of through the garbage disposal system within that apartment building. That's what led to the search at the landfill site, and that's when police made the discovery of the human remains, and it was confirmed by the Center for Forensic Sciences. Here's what the detectives had to tell us just a short time ago.
Last Friday, on June 20th, DNA analysis from the Center for Forensic Sciences confirmed that those remains were those of Shalini Singh. Later that day, 42-year-old Jeffrey Smith of Burlington, Shalini's common-law partner at the time of her death, was arrested without incident. He has now been charged with second-degree murder and indignity to human remains.
Now, Smith has been held in custody, made his first court appearance on Saturday. We're also told by detectives that the Singh family is asking for privacy at this time as they deal with this devastating news. Reporting live in Hamilton, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. Durham Regional Police are investigating a murder in the parking lot of the Ajax GO station.
Details are scarce, with police only saying they were called to the area around 11:30 last night. CTV's Beth McDonnell is following the investigation and joins us live with more. Beth.
Nathan, Durham Regional Police recently cleared the scene here at the Ajax GO station after a man was found with gunshot wounds last night. Officers say around 11:30 they got a radio call to assist an ambulance. When they arrived, they found a man in his 20s in the pathway behind the parking garage leading to the station. He was suffering from gunshot wounds, then rushed to a trauma center but didn't survive. Investigators are reviewing video and believe the shooting happened sometime shortly after 9. Police are looking for a male who took off on foot.
I believe a train came in shortly thereafter, but how busy it would have been at the time, it was around 9-10 p.m. we believe this occurred, so there is the potential that witnesses were in this area. So we're asking if anyone saw anything suspicious, anything out of the ordinary, anything that they may think we should know to come forward.
This is Durham's 4th homicide of 2025. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. An investigation is continuing following a fatal stabbing at a city-run shelter in North York yesterday. It happened just after noon Sunday at a shelter near Wilson and Beverly Hills Drive. Police say 2 men in their 50s were stabbed. 1 man died in hospital as a result of his injuries, while the other suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Police arrested a man in his 70s at the scene. Investigators gave an update yesterday.
We understand that these incidents are alarming and are concerning for people in the community. Please rest assured that we are dedicating all the necessary resources to this investigation, and you will see an increased police presence in the area.
Police have not given any details about the relationship between the three men, and they're asking anyone with information to come forward.
A man wanted in connection with a sexual assault that happened on Saturday is now wanted in a second incident. 32-year-old Anthony Nguyen is accused of assaulting and sexually assaulting a victim on the Dufferin subway platform around noon yesterday. He's also wanted in connection with an incident at Bathurst Station on Saturday. He's described as standing about 5'10" tall with a medium build, black hair, last seen wearing a black shirt, blue jeans, black toque, and black and white running shoes. Police are asking anyone with information on his whereabouts to come forward.
And police were investigating an attempted bank robbery in Scarborough early this morning. Police were called to a bank on Port Union Road just before 3 a.m. When they arrived, they found an excavator at the scene and extensive damage to the building. Police say the suspects left before they were able to get their hands on any of the money. They've not provided any suspect descriptions.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, today marks 40 years since the Air India bombing. We'll have more on the deadliest terror attack in Canadian history a little later in the newscast.
Iran is vowing to retaliate in response to U.S. strikes on its nuclear sites over the weekend.
The door for diplomacy should be always keep open, but this is not the case right now.
The White House has described strikes by U.S. forces on 3 key Iranian nuclear sites as a major military success. Iran says America has crossed a red line and is reserving all options to defend itself. Iran's top military leaders met this morning to discuss the country's next move. Meanwhile, Israel's military confirmed today that it struck an underground enrichment site, which the U.S. also struck on Sunday. Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney says he spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump overnight about de-escalating the situation in the Middle East.
Carney is currently in Brussels for a summit with the European Union, and he is expected to sign a new deal expanding Canada's relationship with the European bloc. CTV's Jeremy Charon is in Brussels with more.
Prime Minister Mark Carney kicked off his first full day here in Belgium with a walkthrough this morning of a cemetery, a military cemetery in Antwerp, Belgium, where more than 300 Canadian soldiers were killed alongside Belgian fighters during the Second World War. That starts what will be a Canada-EU summit here in Brussels for the Prime Minister. He'll meet with leaders of the European Union, where the two sides will sign a new pact, a military and security pact, security and defense pact, that will allow both sides to work together in the future when it comes to procuring military equipment. The Prime Minister will then make his way to The Hague, Netherlands, where tomorrow he'll start or he'll attend the NATO summit, where leaders are expected to focus on a new pledge for military spending. The Prime Minister only earlier this month announced that Canada will invest $9 billion this year to reach the current NATO target of 2% of GDP on defense spending. That target is expected to increase at this year's meeting. Secretary General Mark Rutte has made it clear his goal is for the alliance to collectively agree to a new target of 3.5% military spending. That is expected to be a challenge for Canada, and a timeline has yet to be decided or agreed upon on how long that will take. Jeremy Sherrill, CTV News, Brussels.
Today marks 40 years since the worst terror attack in Canadian history, the bombing of Air India Flight 182. On June 23, 1985, the flight took off from Toronto, heading to Mumbai. A bomb planted by 6 separatists exploded while the plane was over the Atlantic Ocean, just off the coast of Ireland. All 329 people on board were killed, including 268 Canadians. This attack remains the largest mass murder in Canadian history. Memorial events are being held across the country today, including here in Toronto. Meantime, an Angus Reid survey suggests many Canadians are unfamiliar with the tragedy. 32% of people surveyed say they have never heard of the incident, with only 9 people saying they are very familiar with the tragedy and its aftermath. Meanwhile, just over half of people surveyed say the bombing has never been treated like a Canadian tragedy. 65% of respondents say it should be taught in schools. To other news, wildfires continue to burn across Western Canada, but in some parts of the prairies, residents are being allowed to return to their homes.
However, many are choosing to stay away for now, saying it's not worth potentially having to leave again. CTV's Alex Carpa reports.
It's been an active wildfire season in Western Canada, particularly in Manitoba, where over 902,000 hectares of land have so far burned throughout the province. The early wildfire season prompted thousands to evacuate their homes across the prairies, but with recent favorable weather conditions, many are now returning home. The chief of Pimicikamak Cree Nation in northern Manitoba says there's still an active fire near the community, but that crews have it under control, which is prompting the return of evacuees.
There's also always the chance that you could have a big massive fire again, and we may have to evacuate again.
But others aren't as willing to take the risk of going home.
We go back home and there's another fire that all of us will be scattering around and be in different places. Like, I don't want to experience this anymore.
Friday marks the first official day of summer, and Environment and Climate Change Canada is forecasting this season will be warmer than normal, setting the stage for more wildfires to flare up.
Climate models are really predicting fairly large dry areas again over the summer, so while we might have a bit of a lull, we do kind of expect fire activity to probably kick back up probably in midsummer and later, I think.
As for Monius, he understands the situation could change at any minute.
But try to be ready just in case something happens again.
Although there is a risk, Monius is adamant he wouldn't put any of his residents in harm's way if he didn't believe it was safe. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Meanwhile, some people in the Halifax region have been allowed to return home, but a forest fire on the province's eastern shore is still burning. RCMP, Halifax Fire and Emergency, as well as the Department of Natural Resources, have been battling the fire since Sunday afternoon. An evacuation order remains in place for several streets in the Halifax area. Well, nominations have opened today for the by-election in Ward 25, Scarborough Rouge Park.
Voters will be heading to the polls in September to fill the vacancy left by former councillor Jennifer McKelvey. CTV's Natalie Johnson has been following the story and joins us now with more. Natalie.
That's right, Michelle. Jennifer McKelvey represented Scarborough Rouge Park since 2018, and now that she has been elected federally, the race is wide open for hopefuls looking to take that council seat. Already this morning, since the nomination period opened, half a dozen people have made it official. They want the job.
The gates opened and it was off to the races. Candidates hoping to represent Scarborough Rouge Park at City Hall.
All right.
Up first to file,
You have your nomination paper.
former head of the Scarborough Business Association, Sean Allen.
We got to get value for what we're paying for the city for taxes. I think I could bring that conversation up. I'm a business professional, serial entrepreneur.
Good to get the name on the ballot. Flanked and endorsed by two current councillors.
I hear from residents all the time about their concerns around affordability, their concerns around safety. And I've gotten to know Sean over the past number of years, and he is a champion for those issues.
We already have about 5 ex-school trustees on council, so I think that point of view is well represented. What I'd like to see is someone who is impacted, their livelihood is impacted by taxes.
But school board experience is an asset, argues Nathan Shan, the TDSB chair, who is hoping to make a return to City Hall as councillor.
I'm getting support from a diverse group of people who have different thoughts around how we should be proceeding and building the city together, because they know me as a person who gets things done.
Anus Riskin-Daraja, who is also a TDSB trustee for Scarborough, putting her name forward for council.
There's a sense amongst people that the city is changing at a rate that we haven't seen in my lifetime growing up here, but people feel that change is being imposed on them as opposed to them driving that change. And so I think the focus would be making sure that people feel local democracy is working for them.
Riskin-Daraja worked with her husband Parthy Candival for years on the school board. He is now a sitting councillor for Scarborough Southwest.
I think the experience we bring and the reforms and changes we made at the TDSB while we're on the board, I think will inform and help the need to address some of the gaps and opportunities that exist for Scarborough at City Council.
Would you vote together?
We didn't at the board.
Congratulations. Reza Koshtel, meanwhile, has experience in the public, private and nonprofit sectors and says his lived experience in Scarborough would bring fresh perspective to City Hall.
I am the byproduct of when a city works. I grew up with very little, and it was the community centers, it was the libraries, the rec centers, the basketball courts that kept me out of trouble, that uplifted me when I needed it. And I feel like the city that we're living in today is not the city that I grew up in.
But the by-election ballot will be long, with plenty of voices pledging to stand up for Scarborough.
I want to make a difference in the community, in the neighborhood, and stand up for my neighbors and bring respect for the taxpayer dollars.
Like many other people, I'm just tired of what's going on, and I'd like to get in there and see if I can help.
The race to represent Scarborough Rouge Park at City Hall now underway.
And by-election voting day is set for Monday, September 29th. Of course, the next general municipal election is in October 2026, so there will only be about a year left in the term for whoever successfully wins the seat for Scarborough Rouge Park. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Lindsay, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. You know, yesterday we ended up setting an all-time June record for humidex at 46.3. A reminder that humidity is not exactly measured in degrees like the temperature is. So here's a look at what we're expecting today. 36 degrees, feeling like 46. So similar humidity to yesterday, the temperature a degree or two higher. So a reminder, there are many different ways you can beat the heat. Be sure to find a cool place to be today if you can. A shopping mall or a movie theater could be a good option. This heat is going to continue for another couple of days. We'll take you through the forecast right after this break here on CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, weather is the big story today. You really got to take care. Yesterday, it was hot, and today is going to be even hotter. And I found it so oppressive yesterday, just being outside for a little bit. So the idea that there's going to be even more heat and humidity, yeah, it's worrisome.
You have to be smart. I mean, I love the heat as well, but in small sample sizes. You can't just be out there for several hours. Even 20 minutes is a long time in the heat.
It's true. And I mean, we're privileged enough. We're inside an air-conditioned studio right now. It feels pretty good, but lots of people work outside. Many people don't have access to air conditioning. So this type of heat, it's not just uncomfortable, it can be dangerous, especially considering we are in a multi-day heat event. It's going to continue for today, for tomorrow, and really even part of Wednesday. But some relief from the heat and the very strong sun is coming in the 7-day forecast. Let's take you through it. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Today, though, a scorcher. You're not going to find any relief outside. It really just feels like you're standing in front of a hairdryer when you step outside, because not only is it hot and humid, it's also quite windy today. Those winds gusting upwards of about 40 kilometers per hour in many areas. Winds are going to ease as the day goes on. These temperatures, though, are only going to go up. And it's worth pointing out that because we are at the point in the season where we've got a lot of daylight, a lot of daytime heating, we are reaching our warmest point of the day later in the day. So yesterday it was at 5 p.m. Look at these temperatures. It's not just us in southern Ontario, but right across the eastern half of the continent, especially in the southern U.S. Millions of people under some form of a heat warning today. We are at a 10 on the UV index here in the city of Toronto. It's at an 11 in the Windsor area. So very strong, the angle of that sun. Don't forget the sunscreen. If you're going to be venturing out today, bottle of water, a hat, a good idea. Make sure you're staying hydrated, because look at these temperatures right into the evening hours. Anyone with a backyard pool doing okay today, hopefully. But yeah, feeling into the 40s. As late as 9 p.m., it's going to feel like the 30s through the overnight hours, too. That's part of the reason that a heat warning like this gets issued. Look at that. That is our forecast overnight low, 25 degrees, humidex 32. That would be warm for a daytime high at this time of year. But Very uncomfortable, borderline unsafe for many, everyone under the heat warning today, including our friends in northern parts of Ontario. Let's talk about tomorrow. Not quite as humid, but you know it's a hot week when suddenly we're saying feeling like 42 isn't quite as humid. 33 degrees, the forecast high. I'm expecting a slight increase in cloud cover and the chance of a passing shower or thunderstorm as well. Nothing to show you as far as that's concerned for today. We're pretty quiet here on the satellite and radar really for the next couple of days. This line of storms looks like it's going to fizzle. Let's just let the forecast radar play out here because I do want to touch upon the fact that heading into Wednesday, we also have a slight chance of a passing shower, but it looks as though the wet weather is going to hold off until about Thursday and Friday of this week. And when that arrives, we're also going to cool down. So about 29 degrees for the high on Wednesday, 22 for Thursday. That's going to feel like a nice change. 24 degrees on Friday with some showers as well. Heat is going to start to build into the weekend. It's going to be feeling into the 30s again by Sunday. That's the weather for now. I'll send it over to you, Nathan.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. The Oklahoma City Thunder have won their first ever NBA title.
For the first time, the NBA champion resides in Oklahoma City.
Toronto native and NBA MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander led the Thunder to their first title, beating the Indiana Pacers in 7 games. He scored a game-high 29 points while adding 12 rebounds and was named Finals MVP. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is leading a new generation of Canadian basketball stars who've taken the NBA by storm.
It really is so exciting. CTV's Kamal Karamali has more on Canada's growing impact on the court.
Gilgeous-Alexander didn't slow down.
A thrilling NBA Finals.
One game for all the marbles.
That went the distance. But the story of some of these big-time ballers began far from the big arena lights. Here in small-town Ontario, at community courts and school gyms is where it all started for Andrew Nembhard. His former coach, Gus Gymnopoulos, now watching him in the finals.
He's like family to us, so it's a proud moment.
Nembhard, one of 4 Canadians in this year's finals, tying a record set last year. On the Oklahoma City Thunder, league MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Hamilton, Ontario, Luguentz Dort from Montreal. On the Indiana Pacers, Andrew Nembhard from Aurora, north of Toronto, and Benedict Mathurin, also from Montreal. Dwayne Washington coached both Gilgeous-Alexander and Nembhard, signaling a major shift in Canadian basketball talent.
The players are better because the training has gotten better. Coaches and developers has taken their craft a little more seriously.
And that's because the developmental program has also gotten better. Government funding has increased, paying for better coaches, better courts, kids now playing at an earlier age.
Club basketball exploded, and so you've got tons of clubs all over the place. Kids have places to play. The barriers to entry are low.
And that's created better local competition, with young American athletes now coming up north.
Not only U.S. athletes, we're talking athletes from all over the world coming into our school programs because they understand, hey, there's something good happening in Canada.
Part of the rise in talent is also cultural. When the Toronto Raptors started the franchise in the 90s, it got more kids playing. Now those kids are all grown up.
And if you look at all the NBA guys, like they're kind of at that age right now where they would have been impacted by that.
Knowing a new generation of basketball fans are watching these finals now, imagining they'll be the next Canadians crowned NBA champions. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
Kevin Durant is on the move in a blockbuster NBA trade. ESPN first reported the 15-time All-Star is heading from the Phoenix Suns to the Houston Rockets. In exchange, the Rockets are receiving Mississauga's Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green, and 6 future draft picks.
Still to come, concerns about kids' phone usage. We'll have more on new research looking at the addictive nature of phones. That's when we come back. For young teens, it seems the total time spent on their phones isn't the real danger. It's the degree to which they're addicted to using their phones. Now, this comes from a new study of phone use and suicide risk for 10 to 14-year-old kids. Now, to explain all this, here's CTV's science and tech expert, Dan Riskin. Dan, we sometimes call them screen teens, but there's a lot of concern.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're growing up with these things, and we're kind of running an experiment with our kids as the lab rats. And so this is a study out of the States, about 4,000 teens, where they checked in with them when they were about 10 or 11, and then checked in with them periodically over the next 3 or 4 years. And what they found is that suicide risk, whether it was actual attempts or whether it was just ideation about suicide, was correlated with those kids that seemed to be most addicted to their phones, had the hardest time putting it down, had the hardest time cutting off their screen time. And if they did stop their screen time, they had a really severe mood swing. And so there were some kids that were using their phones quite a lot, but seemed to be able to put them down. And those kids didn't seem to have the same kinds of problems. And so, you know, as parents, this is a hard one to figure out exactly what to do with this information, because you can't exactly tell your kid, please don't be addicted to your phone, just use it without being addicted. But you have to look for these telltale signs, because that's where a problem might occur. And this study didn't get into the different things that kids might be doing on their phones, some of which are more addictive than others, most notably, you know, things like social media, but that's probably what's going to come in the studies that come next from this.
Yeah, it makes sense. You've also found a study about how thinking about your daily challenges as things that improve you as a person can have immediate benefits.
Yeah, this is a nice study. You know, I'm always looking for things, just a frame of thinking that can help make life a little bit easier, and because life can be hard. And this is a study about the fact that life is hard. They checked in with a bunch of university students, about 200 of them, and 88% of days, a kid, you know, or a young adult, I guess, said that, yeah, there was something in my day that was difficult. But what they found in this study is that those kids who had a mindset whereby those challenges are part of making you a better person, that there's a benefit to those difficulties. That mindset correlated with all kinds of benefits that day, but also over the course of the entire 2 weeks. Things like improved self-esteem, improved overall happiness. So the take home from this is that, yeah, life is going to throw challenges at you, but when it does, try to remember that those are what make you a better person. And if you have that in mind, you're hopefully going to have a better time getting through those hard times.
And finally, Dan, some good news for black coffee drinkers. It might help you live longer. What did researchers find?
Yeah, this is a nice one. I was pretty happy when I read this as a drinker of black coffee myself. They found that if you're somebody that drinks a cup of black coffee every day, your likelihood of death goes down 11%. And if you drink 2 cups of black coffee a day, 15%. It seems to plateau about there. If you're drinking a little bit more than that, you're not going to get an added benefit. But what you do lose the benefit from is if you happen to be one of those coffee drinkers that adds sugar or cream, those seem to negate the positive effects of the coffee. It's probably the sugar, it's probably the saturated fats. So you don't get the extended lifespan if you're putting a little something in your coffee. So if you can find a way to develop a taste for black coffee, that may give you the biggest benefit of all.
Oh, well, I guess I'll be living 11% less than most people. I have to have a little milk and sugar in there. All right,
I guess that's the way it goes.
Science and tech expert Dan Riskin, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
You too.
Wow, he's in a gorgeous locale there. Meanwhile, Canadian lobster fishermen, they're keeping a close eye on trade talks between the U.S. and China.
Industry leaders say they're currently doing okay, but their business is vulnerable to both economic swings and the environment. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth reports.
Dave Hennebickler is visiting from British Columbia. Picking up a load of lobster before he returns home is a must-do on his shopping list.
And believe it or not, we can come and get lobster here now cheaper than you can buy a steak.
That's music to the ears for Nat Richard, who is managing high levels of fear and concern for the lobster industry in general.
If we had spoken in January, there was a very real possibility that we would be hit directly with significant tariffs on our 2 largest markets, those being the U.S. and China.
The 25% China tariff on seafood products remains in place. But so far, U.S. President Donald Trump has not delivered on his threat to impose additional tariffs, which means for now, the marketplace is better than expected. But there are warning signs that overall business is not as strong as last year.
We've seen a fairly sharp pullback by consumers in the U.S. Certainly the consumer confidence numbers in April and May were quite scary, quite a drop.
The 1-2 punch of tariffs and fewer Americans buying lobster amount to another troubling and unstable chapter for Carl Allen.
I operate in an industry that has an extreme amount of uncertainty built into it by nature. I leave the wharf in the morning. I do not know how many pounds of whatever I'm going after I'm going to catch.
Volatility is nothing new in the lobster industry. It nearly hit rock bottom during COVID, but domestic revenues and overseas markets rebounded within 2 years.
How do you factor that kind of volatility, that kind of uncertainty into business planning is a huge challenge.
And Allen has concerns that go beyond just tariffs.
The fear is always, does the U.S. go into some sort of recession where consumer spending in general, it drops?
If that happens, Allen fears the lobster industry could land in the crosshairs of global financial uncertainty, which, combined with tariffs, could lead to major setbacks for those who make their living at sea. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, the Hudson's Bay Company is back in court today. We'll have more on the business seeking approval to sell several of its leases. That's when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Well, it's been a hot topic throughout this newscast today. We're in the midst of a heat wave, nature turning up the temperature big time today, and it's certainly hard not to notice. For more on how people are reacting to this weather, we're joined by Sam East, host with 99.9 Virgin Radio, for our regular Monday segment, Chronically Online. Sam, it's Monday once again, and it is a lot hotter than last week. We Canadians, we love to talk about what's happening outside. What is the word on this heat?
Well, it feels like we almost summoned this, right? We were complaining and complaining that it was too cold, unseasonably cold, and now it's unseasonably warm. They're saying, of course, as you've heard, that it's probably the warmest it's been in 2 years. And we are, of course, encouraging people to visit the cooling centers that have opened up throughout the city. Stay cool as much as you can. Visit your local pool, your library. Check in on your loved ones who may be struggling a little bit. But speaking of struggling, the comments online, the reaction online of how we're feeling about this heat wave in Toronto. I do not want to hear anybody complain. In a blink of an eye, fall will be here with the eye roll emoji. The kind of heat that makes you wonder if your air conditioning is faulty. Yep, definitely questioning that at this point. And ice cream every day. Let's go. Yeah, I hope to see the local ice cream shops in and around Toronto absolutely thriving at this point.
Be packed, the ice cream. There were lineups over the weekend at the ice cream shops in my hood, and boy, it's hot. We were at the Jays game yesterday, and you know, it's so cool when the dome is open because you get that view, but when I saw that it was closed, we were rejoicing because the idea of sitting in the heat, I mean, it would have been oppressive for sure. Let's switch gears a little bit. Oklahoma City, we talked about it earlier, they secured their first NBA title last night in many parts because of Hamilton's own Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But let's put what happened, you know, on the court aside, because there are some mixed reaction to Kristen Chenoweth's rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner ahead of Game 7 last night. What's the talk about that?
Yeah, you know, if you're not familiar with Kristen Chenoweth, familiarize yourself, because she is a Broadway great, renowned for her amazing vocals, but I don't think a lot of people really vibed with her rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. Have a listen to this.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perils.
So, I mean, from my perspective, beautiful. She's hitting the notes. But if you go over to the comments section, not so much of the same vibe. Now, keep in mind, this is the woman who was most known for playing Glinda up until recently, when Ariana Grande took over that role. But the reaction here, that's Glinda. What did y'all expect? Of course she was going to give her sort of Broadway take on the Star-Spangled Banner. and other people saying there are less than 1,000 people on the planet who have the vocal capability of Kristen Chenoweth, so I don't want to hear it. And someone else simply saying, oh my God, love her, but no, no, no. Now, later on in her performance, she really took that last note to a very Broadway sort of feel. The Kristen Chenoweth hate in this comment section is crazy. I don't think y'all know who she is. So yeah, she had her, her theatrical spin on it. I think she did amazing. Maybe I'm a little biased on that, but I'm a big fan of her, so I like what she did.
People love to weigh in on the anthem, and there's different styles out there. I can't sing, so I think that's incredible. But certainly, yeah, gotta love the chatter online. Everybody's got an opinion, certainly. Sam, very interesting stuff. Really appreciate chatting with you today.
Thank you, Michelle. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Stay cool. And remember, you at home, you can hear Sam on 99.9 Virgin Radio. Her show's from 2 to 5 p.m. on weekdays.
Well, Hudson's Bay is back in court today, this time looking for approval to sell several of its leases to a billionaire mall owner. Ruby Lou's offered $6 million to take over the Bay locations at the 3 malls in British Columbia that she owns. She also wants the storefronts at 25 more malls that she does not own. She's currently facing some pushback from landlords. The judge hearing the case will also be asked to change the name of HBC in creditor protection, since Canadian Tire has bought the rights to the brand, and they're seeking to avoid confusion.
Dragons, zombies, and aliens faced off at the box office this weekend.
Maybe they're not as bad as we think they are.
The live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon held on to #1 for its second weekend with $37 million U.S. in ticket sales. Post-apocalypse zombie thriller 28 years later debuted with $30 million across North America, while Pixar's Elio landed in third with about $21 million.
Coming up, getting kids with mobility issues moving. We'll have more on a Cambridge-based robotics company aiming to give people as much freedom as possible. Walking is something many people take for granted, but for those with mobility issues, it represents a major milestone.
Now, a Cambridge-based robotics company is working to make sure as many people as possible can get up and about. CTV's Hannah Schmidt has the story.
Good job. Oh, you can put it side by your feet then. In the tranquil Cambridge Butterfly Conservatory, 11-year-old Mitchell is walking, not with a cane, but with something far more futuristic. A robotic exoskeleton.
Mitchell was born with a rare genetic condition that we figured out probably in his second year of life, but we started to notice some issues when he was about 8 months old. He has epilepsy.
Mark isn't just Mitchell's dad. He's also a sales specialist at Trexo Robotics, the company behind the exoskeleton, giving his son and hundreds of other kids a new kind of freedom.
We had one of these devices delivered to him just before COVID closed the world down. Within about 6 months, he was walking upwards of a kilometer.
Trexo attaches to a walker, learns a child's movements, then helps power each step forward.
He's in grade 5 now. He's probably done 2.7 million steps on the device.
Just getting to watch your child walk for the first time is it's that milestone. It's just that moment that you'll always remember, and it's so surreal.
Play, pause, turn up and down the speed, but to put it and take a break, you just hit the stand button and it locks the legs into a standing position.
Controlled by a tablet, the device adapts to each child's unique range of motion.
The machine itself has motors on the hips and motors on the knees, so it measures what they're able to do.
Devices can cost up to $40,000, something Mark says is still out of reach for many families.
We did a GoFundMe campaign to be able to offset the cost of it. We also have an arm of our company that helps families do fundraising.
The company now has 450 devices in 40 countries, from home users to hospital rehab programs.
We're still in Canada, and we just recently launched in Hong Kong. And hopefully next year we'll start distributing in the U.S.
And while Trexo's goal is simple, to walk, its impact is anything but.
I say it's a game changer for our family. It's the best equipment that we have.
He could barely hold his head up 5-6 years ago, and now he's a different beast. He can stand up in the shower with me now. He can do lots of things because he's strong enough to do it.
Hannah Schmidt, CTV News, Cambridge.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Okay, we have to talk about this heat. We are under a heat warning. The question is, are we going to break a record? It's looking very likely today.
Yeah, certainly that's one thing we're looking at, and also just the general concern for anyone outside today.
Absolutely. And you know what? It appears we have already broken the daily temperature record for today, if you can believe it. The record to beat was 32.8 degrees. We are just over 33 degrees right now, but it feels like 43 out there. So yes, do whatever you have to do to let's look out for each other. Check in on your neighbors, check in on vulnerable people in your lives. We are going to be under this heat warning today, tomorrow, possibly into Wednesday as well, but we will start to get some relief after that. Overnight tonight, the forecast low is 25 degrees, still feeling into the 30s. Yes, that's the overnight low, our coldest point of the day. Nothing cold about that. And then tomorrow's high, 33, feeling like 42. So slightly cooler. I can't believe I'm even using those words. But yes, this is, we're in the middle of the heat wave right now. Lots of sunshine, little more in the way of cloud cover for tomorrow. Also the slight chance of a passing shower. Even the slight risk of a thunder shower. It's not looking like a sure thing right now, but there could be enough energy there for that. Into the day on Thursday, we're starting to get some relief from the heat, and then things do look to be a little unsettled as we make our way into Friday and into the weekend. But yes, take care, everyone, today. Stay safe in this heat and very oppressive humidity. Nathan and
Very
Michelle.
true. Good advice. Thanks, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Boudet.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.